Welcome to The Issue. I'm Mark Carr, and on this edition of The Issue, we'll be talking to Kyle Barber, CEO of the Oakville YMCA. Then we'll find out what he's got planned for this summer and moving forward. Then we'll be talking to Nolan Machan, publisher and president of the Oakville News. But first, my co-host this week is retired president and CEO of the Oakville Chamber of Commerce, John Sawyer. John, welcome back to The Issue. You've had your first shot of vaccine. Are you more optimistic about the summer and fall?
Oh, certainly I am. I have to congratulate the region. They had a really efficient process, got the shot very well. I'm concerned about the second shot. Apparently there are some supply issues. They're not getting the supply that they had been promised. So as soon as I get that second shot, I'm ready to go.
Excellent, excellent. Now I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce our first guest.
Well, thanks, Mark. I had the great pleasure of working with Kyle when we were, I'll say, colleagues running our respective organizations in Oakville, and I always enjoyed his company. And I cannot believe it was a year ago, exactly a year ago, when we did this last time, and time has flown past. So my first question, Kyle, is how are you coping? How are you doing?
Doing pretty well, John. You know, there is an optimism now compared to the way it was a year ago. A year ago, it was, there wasn't a lot of light at the end of the tunnel, whereas now I do think we're starting to see an end. We're starting to think about program. We're starting to develop some things to emerge quickly as we can. And we're programmers. And so programmers program. And when we can't, we feel a little bit aloof. So I think we're starting to get some ground under our feet again.
Kyle, over the last year, I know you had to react quickly to the circumstances, but do you feel that you're coming back to some degree of normality?
You bet. Well, our childcare system, really we're a childcare Y. That's about 80% of what we do. And so we have been working in all the schools. We're in 40 schools. We've had, 800 sort of essential care children in our care. And so, and we've followed sort of that roller coaster of emerging policy week to week, month to month because of that. Our fitness, health, and aquatic center, of course, has been closed based on the restriction. And then, our camp, though, is where we're starting to feel a little bit of air under our sails now. It's, we launched our registration last week. We were able to open with the restrictions about 1,100 spaces, and they sold out in about 3.5 hours. We're hoping to open up a bunch more spots as the restrictions lift. Usually we run a little over 6,000 spaces, so this is minimal, but it shows that there's a huge appetite for the community after the kids have been in their care during the school year. There's a huge need for some kind of a break for the parents too.
And a huge opportunity for the Y.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah. We're looking at, we've been doing a virtual membership. So, our membership is down to about 70 people. We've been doing 40 classes a week virtually. We've been doing some programming for our Parkinson's group as well. And so some of those programs did continue. We were also able to go out and help a bunch of other charities with delivery of PPE and food delivery. And then we actually did a bunch of balcony fitness as well, where we'd send our staff into communities, that were vertically set up, and we're able to do some of that. So we have been active, but now, we're starting to take a look to see what does it look like for, maybe August and into September, really aiming at that 80% vaccination rate.
Just for context, Kyle, you said the membership was down to about 70, and of course the Y is dependent on membership. So just for context, what would you in normal times be looking at for membership?
Yeah, usually we're about 8,000, you know, and we've been being held up really supported by government subsidy programs, you know, for rent and for utilities and for staffing. So that's really propped us up. And we had some good reserves that we were able to dip into. But yeah, our center's been closed down for some time. We're looking at really a grand opening as opposed to a reopening. That's really the feel here, because we got to start all over again. That big smorgasbord of programming is now a la carte, and we will a la carte as we rebuild things. We're expecting that it will be, as restrictions lift, it'll be, you know, sort of in a metered way. So we'll do some a la carte stuff so people can schedule and come in, and then, you know, we'll gradually bring staffing back and get back to those levels that we're used to.
And
Okay.
what do you think about the pool and the swimming?
Well, you can probably see behind me right now. It's flat water, and that we're hoping that we'll be able to open it up somewhat for camp. You know, we're hoping that in the restrictions will lift in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll be able to start gradually bringing people back in for their lane swimming and their aquafit classes as well. But gradual. You know, people need to feel safe, and we're working really hard. We've updated some HVAC systems. We've got everything ready to go as far as PPE and electrostatic cleaners. All that stuff is all on go. So we're ready. It's just a matter of restriction lift.
I've been talking to some of my friends in the business community, and they have had a real challenge staffing up. People who would typically be asking for resumes are getting literally zero at this time of year, when they would normally be flooded with resumes. Do you see staffing up a challenge for you?
I think so in childcare. You know, staffing, we always have a staffing issue in childcare. There's just not enough childcare workers. And so this just accentuates it. The pandemic accentuates any shortcoming you had in the past. As far as our fitness, health, aquatics, lifeguards, all those types of things, I think we'll be okay, because it'll be, you know, a really gradual succession back into programming. And, you know, the town's offered us some training if we need some lifeguards trained as well. I think but it's going to be slow. You know, we've lost a cohort of staff. Youth development has been at a minimum, you know, and so we will need to start that up certainly before opening the facility.
Kyle, in the last 4 or 5 minutes here, I want to get to how you are reaching out to the community to raise some funds for the Y. How has that changed under the new environment?
Yeah, it really did pivot in a hurry, and moving away from the usual types of fundraising, you know, approaches that we would take that were around events and face-to-facing. You know, we've had to move online, and so it has been a test. Although we have been able to meet our benchmarks as we've moved along. You know, right now we're trying to raise some money for youth programming and senior programming. You know, because those. For mental health, those are going to be number one with a bullet, and so the sponsorship dollars that we'll need for those programs and for camp, obviously. So that's money we need to raise. What we're doing right now, actually, is we're moving into a new 50-50 raffle, and you'll see it in the press. You'll see it as well on our website. It's our front page on our website, and we've never done 50-50 raffles before, but so far it's been working pretty well. So. You know, your viewers can take a look at our website if they would like. But yeah, you know, all of these systems that we've had running have changed, and they're not coming back to the way they were. We have to be much more innovative and much more creative. And I do think that people will want face-to-face contact as quickly as they can, and we know that will come back. So we'll be ready for them.
Kyle, when you think of the Y, when somebody thinks of the Y, first thing that comes to mind usually is fitness, daycare, of course, and I know mental health has been something you've been focused on. Do you see, as we start to get back to normal, any change from those 3 areas where you you have focused, or are you going to change anything in the way you deal with them?
Yeah, I think that, we got to watch the hole in the social safety net here, because research is showing that probably a third of charities are really going to struggle as they wean off SUS money and that sort of thing. And so, other charities may need help. Partnerships are going to be extremely important. And I think there's a clinical side here that we need to keep, close at hand. We're really good at exercise. We're really good at group development, relationship development, and all those types of things. But I think it may be important for us to start thinking about addictions and some things like that. So we've been doing an assessment of the community and the services that are out there, and now we're in the process of making those calls so that 3 months down the road or so we'll have some new programming. And it will be a la carte programming. It won't be sort of part of the big general programming, smorgasbord. It'll be, how can we bring some youth together? How can we work with seniors? How can we work with different needs that combine exercise, healthcare, relationship, and maybe some clinical work as well.
Gentlemen, unfortunately, we're out of time for this segment, and I want to thank Kyle Barber for updating us about the Oakville YMCA. And welcome our second guest. He's kept us updated on what's happening in Oakville, Nolan Machan, publisher and president of the Oakville News. And I'll turn it over to John for the first question.
Hi, Nolan. Thanks for doing this. I know how busy you are, but my first question has to be, how are you coping? How are you doing?
I'm doing actually quite well. I'm used to being on my own. Doing this kind of work is often very solitary, other than talking to people, and people talk to me over the phone. So from a work perspective, it's been quite comfortable. And we got a new puppy, so you put that into the mix, we have full-time entertainment right now.
Perfect. So first of all, congratulations on being named a finalist as the Entrepreneur of the Year for this year's Oakville Business Awards. I know from the inside what a great honor that is. It is not a simple thing. In the past, we would be overwhelmed with nominations, and it was so hard to get it down to the finalists. So just being named a finalist is a huge honor. So congratulations for that.
Thank you.
I guess that's not a question. So let me get to the questions.
Thank you. It's an honor. Yes.
So the reason I love to have you as a guest is you have a really unique overview on the community, and I just wanted to talk to you. What are the big stories you've covered over the last 6 months? What's resonated with people?
I think the obvious answer is COVID, but to be more specific, it's the issues around COVID that are sort of the things that spark people's interests and cause people to sort of read. Top Red's story, literally since January, was about the Oakville dad who was getting a ticket on a toboggan hill. And because of COVID restrictions and him saying, look, I'm out here just tobogganing with my kids. And honestly, tens of thousands of people read that post and were kind of outraged that he was getting a ticket. There's a guy who's just trying to get outside with his kids, do something safe, and lo and behold, that's a big issue. And so it was sort of the way, and it isn't that the police were handling it brutally or anything like that. It was just that sense of being locked down and having those levels of controls over us that we just simply are not used to as a society, and having our kids at home, and just looking for ways to keep everybody active and going. He was just really sort of, I think it demonstrated just the frustration that everybody was having. And I think everybody just identified with this man's plight. You know, the police were very reasonable. They were very, did things in a very proper way and thoughtful way. It's just people could understand the frustration, and that's so true. The other interesting sort of not COVID story. So, I mean, people, the minute we post a story about, how do you get your first, shot? How do you get your second shot? Lockdown 1, lockdown 2, lockdown 3. What does it mean? What are you allowed to do? What are you not allowed to do? All of those types of things are obviously top of mind when it comes to COVID. But interesting things that really one story took off in particular. And it was an article that we posted about the changes that the government did in regards to the conservation authorities. And that topic really, really sparked an incredible amount of turnaround. And it sparked so much sort of comment that I actually got a request from the minister of municipal affairs and housing to actually write an op-ed in Oakville News. It was actually just so interesting. And then there was, the fun, nice story of, the people who opened their front door, and all of a sudden there was a screech owl sitting in their oh goodness, what do you call it? Wreath sitting on the door, and he was asleep. And they opened the door, and there was a full-grown screech owl, and it was fascinating. People were completely enamored by it. So there's always these sort of interesting little tidbit stories that float around, and people are interested in those as well. It's not just all heavy stuff. They're fascinated by the general activity in the community.
Nolan, I do want to be a little critical of the general media in putting forward the issues that, I guess what I'm trying to say is they always slant it one way or the other, never presenting both sides equally of an issue. And that's what I'm used to as news. But I find that even major national networks do it. And that is the editor. You are the editor, publisher, and president of Oakville News. How do you handle situations like that?
Well, there are people who want to push out a false narrative, and they want to call that news. And therefore, they believe that that should be given equal time, even though there's nothing to substantiate it. I make a point of not doing that in Oakville News. If you have facts and figures, I'll support them. If there's two sides of the coin, it's important to see both sides. However, it is also important to, as a publisher, not to feed into the misinformation, because you get click-throughs. And that is critical. And I think that's important for the media to sort of be mindful of that. I had an interesting email exchange actually just this past day about the fact that Oakville News does not publish the names of people who have been arrested or charged with a crime. We do that very purposely. But we have a number of our readers who go, why aren't you telling us this? And then I have on the other side, why are you daring to put a link to the website on Halton Police that provides that person's name? And so it's learning to thread that needle, whereas we don't post the name because we understand the ramifications of somebody who's been charged and then exonerated, or just, just got caught up in the scenario, and their name all of a sudden ends up on the internet, and it can ruin someone's career, and life in general. And then on the other side of that coin, you want to make sure that people who are aware of a crime, who then might actually have information on a particular person, that you want them to be able to access that. And like I said, it's a fine line.
And how do you think the media has done in terms of the pandemic, getting that neutral information out to people? Because I think government and most media outlets have not done a good job. And that's my editorial comment.
Oh, that's your, everybody has their right to, you also have a news outlet. And so I guess I could pose the question back to you. We deal with the information to the best of our ability. And I think, there are some news outlets that want a lot of click-throughs, a lot of views. And so talking about heavy duty topics, and being able to talk about a sensational aspect of something, which may have absolutely no merit, but a heck of a lot of, people will, follow it. Is that really good journalism? And to my understanding, it isn't. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, enough of these light subject. I have to get to something that's substantive.
Okay.
We are talking about Oakville here.
There we go.
Charlie the pet pig.
Oh my goodness, yes. Oh, you enjoyed Charlie the pet pig, did you? The pet pig was a definitely an interesting story that sparked a lot of interest. And again, it is, this poor woman bought this baby pig, told it was a miniature, and then all of a sudden, it grows into a 300-pound pig. The reality is, did she expect to have a gargantuan pig? No. Did she end up with one? Yes. Has it become a family pet? Absolutely. And, there are people who don't want it there. And, she's following the rules, and there should be nothing wrong with, that scenario. But people have very strong feelings about it. That's for sure.
It was fascinating coverage that you gave it. You gave the neighbor's perspective, the owner's perspective. There was even an article on the pig's perspective on all of this, and
letter to the editor. Yes,
it was great. It was
thank you.
Really great coverage. So just to get back to some of the things Mark was touching on, are you seeing any trends in the kind of stories that people are following? What resonates with people, or is it totally random? You put something out and you're amazed that 10,000 people respond to it.
Well, you put out stories. I mean, when we did the initial parking story on what was going on in North Oakville and not having enough parking spots, and now all of a sudden we did another parking story in regards to the town making the decision to ban sort of parking on all side streets around the lakeside parks. Mm-hmm. And then there's another story that followed up after that they have decided to or wanted to look at putting in parking meters at Bronte Beach and at Tannery Park. And, these were things that people felt very strongly about. And if it wasn't for local media, nobody would have ever heard about it. it would have just all of a sudden occurred. Um, so that is a trend. Parking is an issue in this town, and especially in the midst of COVID. Getting down to the lake and being able to enjoy the lakefront properties is a lovely thing to be able to do, and it should be accessible to all Oakville residents.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
on past
Well,
programs. Well, I'm sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Gentlemen, I was going to say we're going to have to park that issue
Oh
here.
my goodness.
I'm sorry about that. We're out of time, and I'd like to thank Kyle Barber, CEO of the Oakville YMCA, and Nolan Machan. Always an interesting subject that Nolan brings to the table. Publisher and president of the Oakville News, and of course, my thanks to my great co-host, John Sawyer, retired president and CEO of the Oakville Chamber of Commerce. You can watch The Issue Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. with repeats throughout the week on YourTV. Truly local. Stay safe and healthy, everyone. Good night.